What if I told you that the order in which your investment returns occurred could have a major impact on your retirement? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about one of the most overlooked potential risks to retirement planning, as well as 3 strategies that you might be able to implement to combat it. Hey everyone, Gabe Galanti here, fiduciary financial advisor, CEO and owner of Rockline Wealth Management. Over the last 12 years, I've personally worked with hundreds of clients on their retirement plan, and today I want to speak about a risk that is often overlooked: sequence of return risk. In addition, I also want to talk about 3 strategies that you could potentially implement to combat it. So, what exactly is sequence of return risk, you might ask? It's the risk that the order in which you experience investment returns through the course of retirement could potentially negatively impact your plan. Let's take a quick look. In this example, we have 2 retirees. They both achieve the same overall rate of return over time and start with the same amount of money. In this instance, $600,000 each. In addition, they both withdraw $25,000 per year for 5 years. Here is investor's A rate of return, where he starts during a bull market, and here is investor's B rate of return, where he starts during a bear market. For the people that don't know, a bull market is where returns are positive over the course of time, as opposed to a bear market where the rate of return is negative over the course of time. So investor A starts off with positive returns and then moves towards negative returns, and investor B starts off with negative returns and turns towards positive returns, the exact opposite of investor A. Even with a substantial loss in year 5, because of the early gains that investor A experienced, he ends up with this much. Whereas investor B's situation being the opposite, starting off with negative returns, he ends up with this much. So now that we've seen an example of the type of impact that sequence of returns can have on a portfolio, let's talk about some of the strategies that might be able to help mitigate these risks. The first strategy I want to discuss reminds me of a rather well-known company, Apple. For those of you that don't know, Apple is one of the largest technology companies in the world. It was founded in 1976, and the co-founders were Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. They started off in the computer space and almost immediately launched the Macintosh in 1984. Unfortunately, a short time later, co-founder Steve Jobs departed the company, and almost simultaneously, they went on to start to lose market share to competitors. Fast forward to 1997, when Steve Jobs returns to Apple and sets them on a more sustainable path for growth. He led the charge in multiple areas like design and innovation, and also helped streamline the processes that were already in place. By focusing on simplicity and sustainability, Steve Jobs was able to bring the company back on track. You might wonder what in the world this has to do with sequence of returns risk, so I'm going to tell you. Developing a plan for retirement that is simplified and streamlined can help you avoid some of the risks that you might face. I'm a big believer in keeping things simple and streamlined, and this can be especially helpful when working through moments of life that could bring on stress to you. The next strategy that I want to speak about is very important, not only when talking about sequence of return risk, but also when talking about investments in general. It might be safe to assume that you are very familiar with, and maybe even have a package waiting from them on your doorstep. The company's name is Amazon. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Amazon was very well known for being an online bookstore. And although it did expand into other retail areas, it remained very dependent on the success or failure of e-commerce. And, as with many things in the economy, the success or failure of a company can rely heavily on the strength or weakness of the consumer. Through the course of Amazon's growth, they had experienced multiple downturns, including the tech bubble of 2000 and the housing crisis of 2008, to name a couple. Staying vigilant and aware that these turns in the economy could occur, Amazon was forced to make change in developing other lines of business such as Amazon Web Services, Amazon Prime, and Amazon Devices. These 3 business segments, among many others, allowed Amazon to move forward and even expand through the peaks and troughs of the economy over time. This is a great example as to another strategy to potentially combat sequence of return risk, and that is diversifying your investments. Diversification may allow for a smoother ride and allow you to withstand volatility over the course of time. My final strategy to combat sequence of return risk brings to mind none other than 7-time Super Bowl winning champion Tom Brady. For those of you that don't know, Tom Brady was drafted in the year 2000 by the New England Patriots in the 6th round, and he was far from what would be considered a top prospect. And although, at the time, it seemed like Tom had no chance of earning the starting position, he was well known for his tenacity and dedication to the practice field as if he was a championship caliber type player. Sure enough, in the 2001 season, then starting quarterback Drew Bledsoe went down to injury. Tom stepped up to the plate when his number was called and ultimately brought the Patriots to win a Super Bowl that year. Former Patriots offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss once noted that even after Brady's 3rd Super Bowl, he was still known to get to the stadium before many others and practice hard as anyone in the offseason. Tom went on to win 6 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots, and after leaving, won a 7th Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a clear story which paints a picture as to a strategy to combat sequence of return risk here, and that is preparation. Abe Lincoln once said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." Preparation can make a world of difference in giving yourself a chance at success. And in our next video, I talk about mistakes that every retiree should avoid. Check it out here.